Okay, that's a good idea. So the recording's starting now. Huge welcome, everyone, to this May reading, which is organized by Adam and myself on behalf of by the Centre for Poetry and Poetics, University of Sheffield. Despite all the gloom with COVID, the series with Zoom have turned out to be a really nice thing, actually, a really productive and creative and versatile series of events over this academic year and a little bit of last academic year as well. I won't say much about next year because we're not quite sure how we are going to continue with the series, but I'm assuming it will be, I'm going to use that horrid word, blended, sort of. Some of it will be in person, so physical event if we can, of course, and I think we're going to continue with Zoom in some way or shape or form. I think it's got its pros and cons, but lots of pros there. So a really warm welcome to you all, any friends who normally are part of the Centre gang and audience, or anyone who's for whom it is the first time to attend this event, all really welcome, but especially to our 5 writers. I nearly said 4, but we have an extra guest who we are going to kick off the event with, Kinga Toth from Hungary / Germany, I think. I don't know. Kinga will tell us a little bit more about this sort of multi-geographical position of hers. So because Kinga was going to read at the previous event and she couldn't, I just thought that it would be nice to start with her as an extra or special guest, and to our 4 friends and poets or artists, Tim Atkins, Carrie Etter, Ulli and Ellen Fisher. This will also be the order of the readings, which we are going to divide into 2 metaphorical parts. Metaphorical because there isn't going to be a real break. I will introduce Kinga, Carrie and Tim in the first half, and the only break will be me introducing again Ulli and Ellen Fisher in the second half. Each poet reading for about 15 to 20 minutes. At the end, I've noticed I'm learning myself. The new thing now is to ask questions on chat. You're very welcome to do that. And Adam, hopefully I'm asking you now to follow the notes because I can't multitask. But I'm also very happy for you to use the little hand wave. And at the very end, if you've got any questions or comments, or you just want to have a chat with the writers, or you want to ask anything, any questions about the Centre's future work, please do. But also very welcome to use the chat thing. But I will find it very difficult to multi-navigate. So Adam will be helping with me there, I'm hoping. Without much further ado, I'm going to introduce the 3 poets, again, who we are really very, very happy to welcome tonight. Kinga, Kinga Toth is a Hungarian writer or a writer who was born in Hungary in 1983 in Shearsman, and an artist who writes and publishes short stories, poems, drama pieces in 3 different languages: Hungarian, German, and English. She's incredibly versatile. I've only known Kinga for the past sort of few years through Wretched Strangers, and then I've started following your very beautiful career as a multimedia artist. So she's a musician and a vocalist, an extensive vocalist, visual and sound poet, and what she does along with the book, the physical book publications, is lots of performances, collaborations, exhibitions, installations, mainly across Europe. What I've seen, or when I have the time to follow what you're doing, from Budapest to Berlin, Austria, and now the UK too. Kinga Tóth is also a philologist, as well as a teacher, but also journalist and the copy editor of art magazines. So sometimes I wonder how you've got time for all this, but you can tell me, or all of us, because I really want to know how you.
So if it stops, I have my phone.
She's also a cultural program organizer. So I've looked up Kinga's various publications. So what would be really interesting if you had just for the sake of 2 or 3 sentences, if you wanted, either before you start the reading. I myself am personally really interested, or after the readings in the less formal chat time, is that the list of publication that I've got in front of me look incredibly interesting, in the sense that they seem to be sometimes double published in various countries. One publication would be in Budapest and then one in the US for the same text. So, for example, just to give you a taster from the list, Party, that was a 2013 publication which came out in Hungary, and All Machine 2014, but that seems to be a German publication to me. Then there is another German publication, Whereby eine Stadt, from 2016, and also a visual art catalog, Textbilder. From the publication details, it could be just purely because I'm an amateur when it comes to it. It would be really interesting for me anyway to hear what sort of texts these are, and what is this about the multiple, potentially multiple publications in different countries, and whether they are bilingual or trilingual texts, etc. Her novel, The Moonlight Faces, came out in 2017 and won back in Hungary the Hazai Attila Best Novel Prize. Then just a few international magazines. I think Kinga is now appearing in so many journals and magazines internationally. It's really beautiful to sort of follow that path of yours. For example, Solitude Art Yearbook, then again several Austrian and Germany-based anthologies, and just because these will make a little bit more sense to us, of course, Words Without Borders anthology over here. That was a 2019-20 publication, or the York Literary Review published Kinga's work, and of course Wretched Strangers in 2018. And this is from the Balaschi Institute's website. Apparently, Kinga loves noise and noisy music. Noise music. Is it noisy or noise music? And tomato. You can tell us all about that as well. After huge welcome to you, really. I just said to Kinga, we are hoping that is just the beginning of something long term when it comes to collaborations. The second reader is our familiar, a lot more familiar to us, someone who's performed or read in Sheffield or appeared in Sheffield before several times, Tim Atkins. Tim Atkins has been a member of the summer faculty at the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics at Naropa University, and also a member of Carla Harryman's Poets Theater in San Francisco. He's the author of many books, including Atkins Collected Petrarch, which was a Times literary supplement and Salon.com Book of the Year at the time. Deep Osaka, which was a photo book. Koto Y Yo and Koto Y Yo, both collections came out by Carrie Etter Press. Then 25 Sonnets was another collection prior to that, and Petrarch was also a collection by Book Thug. Horace was a publication by O Books, and also a collaboration. There is also a collaboration with his daughter, Yuki Lily Matsubayashi Atkins, and the title of the collection is A Girl is a Machine Made of Birds. This was a Canary Woof Press publication. He's also the author of a play, The World's Furious Song Flows Through My Skirts, which was a Stormer Press publication. And I was really thrilled in many ways to see that there is a novel forthcoming, The Bathtub, by Boiler House Press, hopefully soon, Tim. He has read and performed his work in the Houses of Parliament, for Pussy Riot, for example, in concert at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and read all over North America and Europe. His work has been translated into Spanish, Japanese, Catalan, French, and Lithuanian. Mother was is a collaborative film poem made with Graham Maguire, and was a finalist at the Cyclop International Video Poetry Festival and at the Rabbit Heart Film Festival in 2014. His poems have appeared in many anthologies, really, including the Penguin book of the Prose Poem, Carrie is in as well, the Reality Street book of the Sonnet and Faber's The Thunder Matters, which was edited by Alice Oswald. Tim is the founder and editor of the long-running international online poetry journal onedit, and he works in the creative writing program at the University of Roehampton, if I'm correct, with Jeff. I think I am correct. Now this is news to celebrate the new book called Nothing Conclusive Has Yet Taken Place in the World, the ultimate word of the world, and about the world has not yet been spoken. The world is open and free. Everything is still in the future and will always be, is a series of original poems, free translations, and meditations upon the exile of Ovid, Brexit, and the multiple failings of the patriarchy, and is out from Carrie Etter Press later this year. And again, I'm really looking forward to that too. So again, huge and really warm and friendly, huggy welcome to Tim. And the third poet, also someone who's been to Sheffield, I think, on the occasion of the Denise Riley Symposium, Carrie. I can't remember if there was another occasion, but that I remember very well, and the coffee we had, the three of us too, in the freezing cold cafeteria at Jessup West. But since then, we always wanted to invite you back. So this is a little bit of a happy and a sad, bittersweet is the word occasion, because you are here and you're not really here. So we'll have to find a third occasion when physically you can be really coming and traveling to Sheffield.
I'd love that.
Definitely. So a really huge, again, warm and lovely welcome back to Carrie Etter, who as of this August will have been living in the UK for 20 years. Carrie Etter has published 4 collections of poetry, but the most recent one is The Weather in Normal, which was out by Seren in the UK, but also by Station Hill in the US in 2018. Again, only a few to mention from an infinite list here. Individual poems have appeared internationally. Just a few to mention: the Boston Review, the New Republic, the New Statesman, and as mentioned before, the Penguin Book of the Prose Poem, TLS, and elsewhere. Carrie also edited Infinite Difference, other poetries by UK women poets. That was a 2010 Shearsman publication, and currently she's reader in creative writing at Bath Spa University. And I think also that's what I know Carrie is going to be reading from new work as well. So that is really going to be very exciting. And that's all from me. Just sit back and enjoy the 3 writers, artists, poets, authors. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, so much for the invitation. And now this is really happening, and hopefully, as you just mentioned, Agi, hopefully it's a good start. It's a start for a longer collaboration and hopefully international. And let's hope that we all can meet also personally. And just like a very small answer for your question, how I can do so many things. Of course, if you cannot do one thing properly, you are just making a mess like a little bit this, a little bit that, and so on. I'm still writing in Hungarian and in German language, like a translating thing, or like I'm writing like in hybrid forms, in English also, but my English is my 3rd language, and you can hear it later. So English is probably my weakest part. And I also would love to say a huge thank you for all these people who are all the time lecturing and correcting and even translating my texts. So I met a lot of wonderful people like Szabolcs László, or Tima Sipos, or Owen Good, or at the moment I'm working with Annie Rutherford. So in the first part, I would do 2 small sections. One will be the mass section, and the other will be the reading section. And in the mass section, you are going to hear some chantings, singings, poetry looked things with some noise. And these are for me. And the other one, which is going to be a bit longer text, is a translation by Annie Rutherford. So I have the English and I have the Hungarian and the German version. These 2 I wrote, and the English version is from Annie, and it's way better like this. And yeah, that's it. At the moment, I'm in Germany. That's true. In the last 10 years, I'm kind of a vagabond. So I'm sometimes in Hungary, and then I make a mess there, so I have to leave the country again. And mostly I'm in German language-based areas, just like now. I'm in a beautiful place in Villa Waldberta with amazing artists, not so far from München. So there will be some German birds also doing some noise. It's not mine, it's theirs. So that's from me. Thank you very much again. And In the first section, where the Holy Maria is coming, I will use my lunchbox. I didn't bring too many things to Germany with me at the moment. I need to go back to Hungary for the second vaccination, and then I'm bringing more noisy things with me, but the lunchbox is always with me. And this is it. I hope you can see. And this is how it looks like. So if I'm in a big trouble and I cannot say anything smart, I have the lunchbox. This is from Rome, so this is very holy. This just creates nice sounds. I got it from Hanna Rau, who is a poet in Hamburg, Lübeck, actually. And this is just like a small noise machine, which can be a really good help if you cannot pronounce the words well, and then you can say it was an exotic piece. So now I'm going to perform something where I'm going to combine my text too, but fake Hungarian folk songs, and also the Lament of Mary, which is actually the first Latin-based text, but about the Holy Mary in Hungary. So, lunchbox on. Yeah. Yeah, it works. Mary piros hadott, egész éjjel, egész este mocskos lett a szoknyája, a nadrágja, a bugyogója, a kesztyűje, a Mary wore it all day. Oh, body, golly, her clothes became dirty, her trousers became dirty, her slippers became dirty, her clothes became dirty, never wore red again. Mary does psycho yoga. She wants to get better. She doesn't like the quarantine. We are all in. Where is the Holy Spirit there? How does it sound? When does it come? When it's coming, the világnak világa, világnak világa, világnak világa, virágnak virága. Light of the light, bird of the birds, flower of the flowers. Síromon sepedek, búvol, osszuk, epedek, fiamtól beaten and bound, ezes örömemtől beaten and bound. Mary sits on a plant. Her friends are the spiders. Sok a barátja, sok póka barátja, from her mouth yellow blossoms are reflecting. Szájából sárga virágok ömlenek. Where is the Holy Spirit? When does it come? Now she rides an elephant before it sleeps till dawn. Half moon tattooed on her shoulders, roots in her hands, 16 flowers in her throat. When does the spirit come? To the white flowers of Voltaire. Come and eat the guns up. Come on the elephant. Ride the dogfish, sit on our ram forehead and breathe. Anna, Anna, Anna. Kisunai ülkít néha egére, síromon sepedek, búloszuk, epedek fiamtól, ezes örömömtől. Üklelve, ketve, beaten and bound, but breath, Hana, Hata, Hana, Hata. Two messengers plan the plans. There rose a ladder to the light kidney beans, birds of the birds, flower of the flowers, smaller than small and greater than great, cruelly art tortured and pierced with iron nails. Let us be fish around again. Let us not die as a fish. When people get us, when we all land, we feed the fish with alga saliva, then they digest us in a fish when we born in a fish, blue like our container in the ocean, blue like our uniform. 1 and 2 and 3, we are in the row underwater. What does the seagull want when no animals are moving? Have mercy upon our son, and let the serpent comes out of the mouth with golden head, aranyfejjel, anyát, ezes fiával, anyát, ezes mézül, két niha egire, öklelve kette, két követ palántál, beaten and bound, szájából sárga virágok ömlenek. I'm not going there and back. I stay and plant flowers in my mouth and water the dry ones, the green ones might blow through to me and paint the yellow, the rattling ones. I'm not going there back. I stay and water the ones on the balcony and plant the ones trapped inside out, but only with the fingertips. I let the harmless ones and cover my arm with the leftovers to my mouth, fruit and seed. I shall grind, töröljek már lefele a falakon, ragadt törmeléket, saját veszélyem, a számba gyümölcsöt engede, a veszélytelent a többivel burkolom. So I'm not going there and back. I stay and I plant flowers into my mouth garden. So I don't know, how noisy is that? Shall I go a bit further or do you hear everything okay? So it was not like that harsh. Okay. Volkában vagy, arancsukját, lemezekből fonódik le alja is. Ó, mamahan. In burqa, or from a golden caul, from a golden hood, from plaits twines down her hair, also gold, poured on the fur stiffed in gold, Puttos hold her breastbone, press her to a knight, names her scaphander a sarcophag, her helmet is glazed, she lays out the residue of her face, the spongy bones holes, and the teeth remained intact. Oh, Mamahan Maria, you've been castled, mauled intacto in king's dreams, will your sweet smell be remembered, so will you be recognized in the sarcophag, nor is yours, no, you gave it to S leg, you made it as to, although it grasp covered you, she's been put laid in a baluster, waited till the incrustation taken from there too, put in marble, her glass become glazed, és onnan is kivettek, és kerék alá tettek, és onnan is kivettek, és kerék alá tettek, taken from her too, casted mold in gold, so you stay. This is how her ship She was set up. How shade swings, how she rings, her son reaches the rope, the shore climbs the mountain, then she's put on the carried throne in stitch-shell skeleton, the mask will be cast, mold on her face, her waist broke, to everyone could see, your stomach will left empty. All the secrets were closed with her, only the smell leaks out from the iron dress, the smell of the hands, the smell of the legs, the smell of washing. Oh, Mama Han. An angel flow passed over our heads. Stonemason's wife breaks through the wall. In the cafe, on the terrace, between brightly colored chairs, they fly away. Her mouth is red, her wings covered in flowers. They scold or curse with lovely words, 7 generations of all your fathers, all your mother's blood, each of their descendants for every knocked down brick, a man's heart suffers. They knuckle down, not work, let it rain on the town. There are no stone engines left, no one who digs ditches, not a single one to be left. Between bricks about the park fly the vengeful stonemasons' wives. The wind wipes their clothes, bats clatter in their hair, in their braids, orphan girl hair, orphan women hair, the silence of the children left behind. The children left behind don't cry, don't make a noise. Their limbs become pale as they are beaten. They creep into the back rooms, learn to nestle into doormats between the fabric braids. No one can reach them, their legs stretched out. They lie on the threshold. The doormat is their blanket, their shroud when their back cracks from lying, or from a shoe when they don't dare to sigh anymore, when father's shoe crashes against their spine. Dirt from father's shoe falls into their mouth, onto their face. Father works. Father is hardworking, the dust from the street, onto the floor, onto the skin, onto the question, with ricochets of the ground. If it's like this, if father's quite deaf, and if it crashes, he has gone properly deaf, then blood. And only a sigh can be heard, a single constant voice, when the last sound of the doormat's children is to be heard. Mother is already fluttering round the rooftop, around the wooden house, like a destroying angel, like a warning, leave the shoes outside, watch where you tread. My weight is lighter than the smallest brick, his weight is lighter than the smallest rags. 2 kicks, and the voice disappears. 2 kicks, and you take the oven's hat from the house. Like cement sloshing onto brick, the covert's hair drips onto the mat, and impurity onto the child's face. Their shoes had to be cleaned before the door. That kind of thing isn't allowed into the flat. Only when it's him who works, who makes the things, who makes the something, the flat of whose hand is callous, the flat of whose hand is industrious, the flat of whose hand is broken because his work sticks fast to it, monstrous toil and strife. Stone must be mastered, iron must be bent, fire must be smothered, blade must be sharpened, tools must be cleaned with leather, with knife, the knife must be brought into the house and sharpened, the house must be built, and she who asks questions must be walled in and silenced, and then the house must be cleaned and the antenna mounted on the roof, These thirsty veins still hang there like the bloodthirsty buzzing stonemason wives flying quietly. Their lost dresses are still there. The wedding dresses hang from them, which they wore twice, both times too soon. And they easily fitted into them, for there had been no time to put on weight. There was no time for buttons to burst off, and the cover didn't have time to dirty his trousers at the knee. Either not even time to fall or to test the trousers in the rain before the early winter frost. And this antenna, these electrical jungles winding round, each other catch the ankles, the hem of dress, the hem of the slip, which has lifted so carefully to keep it good even before, when they didn't yet want to receive it. She didn't want to crawl into her dress, just yet into her skin, tear out her heart, her liver, her gut, and hold them tight and see how she goes slack, and her hair grows full of heaven flowers, like these many, many stonemasons' wives circling there. They called her Salt Princess or Salt Angel, because behind the walls she shed so many tears, because her fluids wreck the mortar like enamel, because where they flow the paint, the protective paint, beads off. They wish in vain to cover her up, in vain. They paint over her anew for Easter on Monday. A new figure of a woman always appears, always a silhouette, a conical amphora, a raised index finger. And the salt pinched the stonemasons' faces, and there was nothing more to be done, because they became translucent forever, because the wall swallowed her up, her hair tangled up with the straps of her dress, and the woman still hanging from the antenna, were like the maypoles there on the wooden house's roof. Maybe they didn't have any hands, any legs anymore. The whirlwinds are whirled. They whirled the translucent sunflower posies, the kites, the faded exclamation marks. In 2020, the Hungarian government rejected the Istanbul Convention. 1 woman dies every week in Hungary due to domestic violence, and 15,000 children are injured each year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kinga. So we are going to move on to, that was absolutely wonderful, and it was really good to hear what you're doing the first time for me. Moving on to Tim Atkins for our second writer.
Well, folks, thank you, Kinga. That was a just fantastic performance. What's the thing you say? Hard act to follow, but do my best. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here this evening. Aggie, Adam, thanks very much for the invitation. It's an honor to read with everyone this evening who's here. Nice to see old friends coming along this evening. I'm going to read, some of you will have heard some of these poems because, well, forgive me, you will have done. I've got a book coming out from Creative Press. Aggie mentioned it. Richard Parker has done a beautiful job. He's doing 10 different covers of the book. That's one of them. This is another one. And so I'm going to just be reading from this book. It's coming out in 2 or 3 months later on in the year. I guess it's useful to know a little bit about the book in as much as it's kind of a meditation on exile. There are poems, kind of poems by Ovid and Marina Tsvetaeva and Nazim Hikmet, lots of other exilic poets. They're there somehow in the thing. And it's about Brexit. It's not a barrel of laughs, amigos. So that's the story I'm going to read for, I don't know, about 18, 20 minutes. If the sound's lousy, I've got chat box going on because my reception's really crap. So just let me know that if you're getting the dub version, which may arguably be an improvement. So, okay. If you put it in a book and send it, if you put it in a book and send it out, if you put it in a book in order to resist, if you wrote that book from under your bed, if you wrote that book because you could not sleep, because they used to rip only the arms off, you put it in a book and you send it out, if the sea is black or if it's always filled with people or ice, you put it in a book called Tristia, because you are, and the letters and the book play the role of your beloved and of your servant, and you send it out for 2000 years, and you send it out thinking that somebody is needing to read it. Even if you cannot bring yourself to get out from under the bed in order to change the world, you and cleaner clothes. If the bed is some kind of comfort, or if you put it in a book and you cannot think who is ever going to read it, who is left in Rome, who is still reading or eating or living or smoking, even who is reading or leaving the house, going out to watch contact sports instead of reading the book, you would maybe send it out if you wrote it in order to resist. You say you will write it to resist if you can write it, because you would rather be sleep or you would rather be sex. In a book about thinking about power and how to be small or invisible in order to exist like dust does, a whole book of it made up of dead dusts which you have lived in, the dead white male poet role in exile from the academy because it was and you are doomed in order to exist like an artist without hope and or money beside the Black Sea and great hope, no money and dust. If you put it in a book and get round to sending it out, it turns on your thoughts of the empire in order to be small or invisible again so that you can move. Instead of thinking about writing about a book, Sadness and the Black Sea letters, a final book of insults and spells. It was a dark and stormy night. And again, it is, and I think of the gods who are no longer gods, or the gods who are just tools stuck into the idea of the Book of the West. Studying hunger, I season its concept with noting my anger, something my anger is, a book anger. It always has, and I don't send it out. I look at cucumbers in a wan light. I think about all the small poems that I used to send out, letters saying your language is weak, and even, ooh la la, I was a bad artist and I was a boring one. When I send my books out in order to resist aging, pollution, men, bikes and dicks, it is good to think about paper and the size and shape of things, books sent out or not sent out in order to resist staying inside the house, breathing dust. You make a list of modes of resistance consisting of phrasal verbs and adjectives. You want a book made of nylon to repel dampness if the sea is black, or if it is always filled with people or plastics. The sea's filled with mountains of plastic, the sun burning, the bodies piled high on these islands, breaking up in the sun, streaked white where the birds shit, on the pink and blue, black plastic bodies, tossed wrappers into the sea, the wine dark sea of wet wipes and ghosts, Algerians, Moroccans, etc. And you cannot build a wall against the water, just the same as you cannot build a book anger, which you may well send out if you can locate your arms or the lost bits of kids, if you can get through their cages, if they do not hold them under the boiling cold sea. What will the world do with your book if you write it and send it out? Listing numbers, but numbers, if you can imagine them drowning in a black water filled with plastics out there, an island or mountain, one there of bottles and one there of bodies, one then a site of habitation and the other of nutrition? What does it taste like to a fish or a seabird to eat the floating parts of an Algerian from the mountains, or a coast dweller from the coast, or the tiny parts of a family, possibly sub-Saharan, from your position in exile, beneath a bed in a small town beside the Black Sea, resisting this volume which you will or will not ever move to send out? When Walter Jackson sings Welcome Home, when Walter Jackson sings Welcome Home in 1965 in black and white, and he casts off his crutches, when he does this and you watch him in the corner of a room, and it is almost as if he is living and you are still smoking. Perhaps he has received Jesus in the world he grew up in, and perhaps he grew up in his head, in his church, and perhaps he knows better. That you are godless and appealing to be taken back or taken up or taken in spite of the brownouts, staring out at the sea, you realize how badly you require salvation, a soul review to take part in or watch one on a bus driving out of the Carpathian Mountains, piling up the men and women, tired and hungry, walking into a diner, hopeful of getting attention, because there are racists on the plains and in the mountains. You check your privilege, and having checked it, the problem is that you cannot go forward in time or backwards. You say that you can in the imagination or in books, but everyone still acts the same, and the toxins still get dumped in the seas and the rivers and the streams, not to mention fly tipping, and all you can do is sign a petition to resist agribusiness. But your digital signature means nothing to a Viking. When the Vikings pull in and do whatever appeals, say fracking or the fixing of juries with gangsters or murder, you have seen them in operation in poetry competitions. You thought you were the obvious winner, but you weren't Viking enough for someone, perhaps. You think your writing was better when all the references to sex sounded ambiguous, or written by young men or young women, or appealing as opposed to sleazy or obscene. Age makes you sick when you look at yourself, but you tell yourself that your audience once approved of your small songs of love, the ones in which people crawled in and all over each other without giving out or giving up. And you thought all you ever wanted was this, but now you live in a cold water apartment with Walter Johnson, and your digital signature no longer works in the parts where you click. It is always too late, and it is never too late to summon all the tall and the beautiful ones, to come and give comfort, call Jesus and sing, the stylus settling into its bed of black vinyl, the ear finding the horns before reaching the strings. When atoms are traveling down through empty space, and when atoms are traveling down through empty space by their own weight at quite indeterminate times and places, there is the possibility that they will be shot by racists and lost. If not for this swerve, everything would fall down like raindrops through the abyss of space, going to live in the possibilities offered by the giving of a meditation, teaching, or poetic reading. After all, you were the first avant-garde poet in the history of the world to be kettled, and you can prove it in verse. If anyone supposes that the heavier atoms on a straight course through the empty space, exist in the epic and could outstrip the lighter ones and fall on them from above, thus causing impacts that might give rise to generative motions, stand-up routines in nightclubs, revolution through humor as practiced in Yugoslavia, or the dissolution of ego. They are wrong. You are under a bed and the bombs are no longer falling, and you are under a bed because you know that the times when they stop is always and only a lull. If you close your eyes, you can feel the atoms swerving, but not to avoid the color of your skin. And all you can ask yourself, if the moment is connected, one day you are making love on a lawn and the next swerving from your own course at no set time or place, distracted by flyovers and freeways heading west. There is a cloud in Minecraft, the way you built it, and you occasionally go there to relax. Your t-shirt says that you believe in unconditional love at poetry readings, and your shirt is covered with flowers, but you wore that one out. It was good to be alive before the empire grew tired, and it was good to have known love before the invention of disco or the internet. You really thought that women and men would be equal before the end of 1977, that you did not reckon on men. There is a picture of a skinny white girl on the side of a building in every city. And in every city, there's a rich or poor white girl spitting on somebody else. And there will always be somebody else praying to somebody else, and their heads will be touching, and all the gods and the cars and the stuff. And these atoms, not visible, and the injustices and the possibility that they will be shot by racists. They're choosing the paint for the walls of their bedrooms too, and they are thinking and kissing. You see them wherever you go, but you do not really see them. When you close your eyes under a bed during a break in the bombing, you can hear them breathing and you can hear them coming. You know they will never stop coming. For you, there is a list. So I've got two more poems to read. One of them goes like this. You are no longer in Babylon, and although you are no longer in Babylon, you can still feel it. Nights you look out on the oil rigs and the black water, and the female entertainers standing next to the male performers, and you think about that difference. There is a couple across the hall. You can hear them. You hope they are making love on a flower of dark sobs. Although you are no longer in Babylon, you are still of it. Walking past the metal street signs at midnight and finding them hot to the touch. But you are too, always, distant, huge moonflower of phosphorus and silver. Although you are no longer in Babylon, you can pretend to get things done. You remember there were people sleeping in the streets every day. You go at the language and the 7 new words push 7 old ones out. When you say sidewalk, you were a tiny Canadian standing in front of the pylons in Old Comer. You remember it was good to have daughters and it was good to be a father. For 10 minutes, you thought it was the answer. But in our current situation, there is no answer. Joe Luna said in the Chicago Review, you go at the language and you do as much as you can manage. Perhaps 7 or 8 words a day. Most of the good ones from Lorca. And the last poem is going to involve me fucking something up. If you think I haven't already. And you get out of bed, and you get out of bed in the middle of the night, or you get out of bed in the darkness before dawn, or you get out of bed having barely slept but not knowing that fact. And you are suddenly awake and you want to read something. You're not really awake and you do not remember what it is, or if it was a book that you read or had written, you know, you'll never find it in your room in the dark beside the wine dark sea in a different language. You will never find it because you are an anonymous writer and your books have been buried, and you are a famous writer who is incontinent, both in exile from every moment which you felt was important. And perhaps you cannot see your hand in front of your face because of the darkness, or because of your age, or because of the times you find yourself in. You have your feet at the ends of your body, and you have something which, when you were horizontal, at times you told yourself was genius. The ability to read everything in the West, and the ability to love it without complication, or with complication, and feel empowered by your ability to hold that contradiction. And now you're awake in a room with and without the Western canon, and you are awake in the darkness and the absence of books, and you would give anything to see your beloved's breath on your shape, but it is impossible. And you would find your daughter in innumerable volumes. Night wraps the sky in tribute from the stars. There are no longer any pills, and they are tearing down the social housing close to the water to build waterfront apartments. You cannot see them in the dark, but you can feel them coming. The ships pull back and the sea pulls back to sleep, and you can feel them coming for you, but they are a different them, and the coming is a different one. And you read a book about being a father, and all you want to be is one of those ordinary characters in a Scandinavian novel. You love Colored Girls by Ntozake Shange, and when you were alive, you were reading about the pointlessness of life, and you are smoking it all up. And every day is so beautiful, you once thought, if you can see it in the future. And every day will be so beautiful in the past, standing in a room in the dark, without books. You have nothing but one called sadness. And without books, you have and do not have a poetics of space. There is no intertextuality and the reading of Roman poetry. There is no way of understanding music and what the world becomes if it was not designated to culminate in a book. And you get out of bed and you do not tread on the haiku concerning your wife. And you stand there in the poem, in the room. There is no other space you can hold it in because you have so many things still to say and have nothing to write. The books you send out disappear or come back, and your voice can no longer feel your hand in the dark. You are no longer a man or a woman or a thing because there is no silhouette to reflect or pick out. You think of yourself, and then you do not think of yourself as any random selection of nouns placed alongside any random selection of verbs. You are everything that ever existed slipping. And now that the books have turned themselves into nothing in the blackness, there is only the angle of the planet, and it is the one number against which you become a different fact. How hard it is in the night with no books, and how hard it is in the night with these things, whatever they are, you know, it doesn't matter. if there was a gypsy ensemble which you saw or imagined,
hogy így ülnek az asztaluknál,
or a salad on the table next to a different salad, you do not have the apparatus to pass the meaning you desire through the fluid of your eyeball, and what little sound ever approaches a larger one leaves you. Soon you will be a writer without eyes and no sound, your antennae and your wings and your tape measure. Here they all are in the middle of the night in this volume, and here they all are in the middle of the imaginary volume in the imaginary night you worked so hard to make yourself invisible in. All your best-selling volumes on poetic imagination and reverie. You pretended to be all the pronouns, and you pretended to be drunk, and you pretended not to be in love, but you weren't. And you wrote it all, or you read it, or you thought it, everything always in a volume called Paris Stories, and everything in the stars and the oceans and the night and the garbage, arranging things and calling it the human condition in the history of the world. And there is no such thing except suffering, and there is no greater aim than its alleviation in parks and in corridors and circuses. You read all these things in bedrooms and workshops and libraries, and the moment you get out of bed, you stand there. You stand there. If you touch the doors or the walls in the history of the world, everything human, and in the history of the world, nothing inhuman. There is nothing smaller or bigger or smaller than ever you realize. One rises to address in hours like these, at the end of your life, you and me fading, the ages, history, and all creation, at the end of your book of the heart of the night. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That was absolutely fantastic. And we could hear the instrument as well. So that was beautiful, beautiful work. Was this last piece from the one that's coming out by Creator?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Very beautiful reading, heartbreaking as well. Carrie Etter is our next reader for tonight.
Aggie, next time I read for you, can I go first?
Okay.
Thank you, Kinga and Tim, for your wonderful readings performances. And now me, yeah. I want to try out all new work tonight. I'm going to begin with some prose poems from a newish series about sentences and their misadventures. The series is inspired in part by Jennifer Moxley's prose poem series in her book, The Line. They're all untitled. The sentence declares it's a cold day in early March. The maple and sycamore leafless, the daffodils tawdry with yellow. Proffer or promise. There's a reckoning of days, an interminable catalog, a diminishment by number. Such small rooms leave little oxygen. Heave ho, says the old man walking his little dog. Heave ho. There's always chatter in the off license. Let me tell you about sentences, or don't talk to me about Heidegger. There are tins of baked beans, plastic bags of spaghetti, 16 flavors of potato crisps. But how cold does it feel? The most frequently bought wines have either palm trees or sea vistas on their labels. Chuck, chuck. If one can take a sentence for a walk, how does it work in a loop, the widely favored form of walk? How does the sentence end with the same word with which it began, or somehow end just before it? So the first word could be touched with an outstretched hand. The loop goes down the road, up the slope, to the right past the green, along a further flatter right through poplars and the occasional skitter of dogs, down further right into that turn, over a mud path that in summer is banked with blackberries and offers a view of sheep on the far hill. The sentence can cover a lot of ground. In the distance, the looming, wonderful if. The sentence is my favorite hammock. Whatever the weather, I am once in situ. In a millisecond, the hammock widens, silvers, develops a pelt that warms as it cushions. Perhaps that explains my resistance to imagining myself a cat. Briefly, an existence of furred leisure beckons. Then I remember language. Here, little sentence. Show me how to. Let me hear how you purr. And the last of these. There's a sentence that behaves like a cartoon mouse, excitable, cunning, leading me gaily to a cliff's edge obscured by a false backdrop. What does it want from me? The sentence will outsmart me by leading where I hadn't intended to go and exposing my gullibility. Here I am at the off license among the many flavors of potato crisps, considering the merits of sweet chili or honey ham, when I had struck out for the open air, the blackthorn and wild garlic blooming, all the white blossoms of April. You simply need some provisions for your walk, the sentence says, even as I see it turn to an unseen audience and wink. These next passages are from a new manuscript in progress. Rather different for me. It follows the classical figure of Cassandra from the fall of Troy to her death in Argos, and thus it explores the trauma of war and rape. Some passages are in script, some lines, some prose, and at the bottom right of some pages, there are quotations. The quotation that begins, the calm, the burn of the Holocaust, comes from Maurice Blanchot's The Writing of the Disaster. And I'll start at the beginning and then start skipping around. Exit, Cassandra. A dog skittles past, askance at the strange, at the scatterings of fire, scorched earth, smoke-black sky. Enter Cassandra. Here, a girl in a once white gown, but oh, below her waist, blood stain, rape stain, how it seeps through the fabric, how it spreads. This is in script. Athena. Did you see that nasty? In my temple. My temple. Poseidon. Aias? Isn't he one of yours? Athena. Just because I support the Greek team doesn't mean one of them can shit in my. Poseidon. You mean rape? Athena, exasperated. Yes, rape. He raped Cassandra, who in my temple should have been. Poseidon. So you're for the Greeks, but not this Greek? Athena. He defiled my temple. Exit Cassandra. The annihilation of noons, not a question about the sun. Regardless of sun, there is no light. I walk blindly. Is that my mother crying? The air is heavy with salt. A herald declares this, that. The annihilation of noons, not a question about the sun. Are my eyes open? On the altar, is that my sister's body? Perhaps the sun blazes. I am the hollow of a drum. I can feel a warmth over my hair, my arms, but if it's light, I might see my father's corpse. The annihilation of noons, not a question about the sun. A soldier leads me away, but not toward. Enter Cassandra, led by a Greek soldier. Wrists bound before her with rope, the decor of force, she. Into the Greek camp, dozens of tents, fires, the men attired in armor, in mud, in souvenirs, like this one waving a dead man's shield. Long hair unbound and disheveled, gown trailing in the dirt, she. Into an eye line above or between the men's heads, neither awake nor asleep, though walking. Lips barely parted to try to inhale without smell, she. Into the reek of men, an army of men, sweat and urine, shit and blood, and cask after spilling cask of Trojan wine. Eyes open and unblinking, yet not quite seeing, she. Among swords, spears, shields, crossbows, missiles, chariots, horses, whips, javelins, helmets, greaves. The drinking, drunken men turn to watch her drift by. The calm, the burn of the Holocaust, the annihilation of noon, the calm of the disaster. This is in prose with slashes. In the annihilation of noon, only yesterday, a virgin, and the flaming city, smoke black and break cry, the city, her city, out of the horse, the Greek soldiers. Homes in the ransack, in the pillage, in the burn, people, her people amok. Oh, the bodies, many, so many, blood wet, pierced, stabbed, hacked, hewn. Her mouth only emits break cry or hard gasp. And just days ago, fanning long gleaming hair over breasts, shoulders, back with a thrill, the easy certainty with which she paired body with my. I'll read one more page later in the manuscript. and end here. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm so grateful. What's a Trojan horse? You mean Greek, Greek built, Greek full. What's a Greek horse? The side that loses this war is the most gullible. What's a Greek horse? Who knew that trees could be traitorous? What's a Greek horse? It sure ain't a gift for a goddess. What's a Greek horse? It exudes man, but smells only of pine. What's a Greek horse? Murder comes out of its belly. What's a Greek horse? The first day of my death. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Carrie. I will have some questions about this new work later when we come back. Really beautiful. I don't know, there seems to be a collective mood going on here. But I don't blame you guys.
No, sometimes, well, I think that's the thing. I think your projects choose you.
Yeah. Really fabulous work. Thank you, Carrie. Lovely to hear what you're doing at the moment. We're going to have to move on into the so-called metaphorical, well, not metaphorical. This is the metaphorical break, but the second half is not metaphorical. It's happening to the next two poets and our final two writers or artists or authors, Ulli Freer and Owen Fisher. So I'm going to introduce both of them right now. You can have a little breathing space whilst I'm doing that, but do listen, please. So Ulli, I think the last time I saw you was probably at Jeff Hilson's, one of Jeff's eclectic readings a couple of years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago now. I think it must have been the Jazz Pujol event with like about 50 of us reading there. And when I saw you reading, and you have to see this, I just thought it was absolutely mesmerizing and mind-blowing a performance. So I'm not going to ask questions now, just a rhetorical question as to how you've been getting used to the box space if you're used to performing.
Yeah, if you move, your voice gets distorted.
Yes.
So you know, I mean, I could use it, but I best not.
Because we can have just a very quick chat about this, because for you the whole body is involved. And I went to an interesting reading a few months ago just to hear Denise Riley, and she deliberately switched her camera off, which she really annoyed the audience by that gesture. And she said she hates this because everything is concentrated on the face, and she doesn't want that. So it will be interesting to hear how you've been adapting to this new thing, platform. So let me just introduce you quickly, or not so quickly. So Ulli Freer is a London-based poet and performer, and also occasional publisher. And his work has been published in really many magazines. Just a few to mention here: Data Bleeds, Splinter, Black Box Manifold, run by Adam, who's here, Erotoplasty 7, and actually Ulli's list is very modest here. I think, again, the list is endless. The recently published books include No Title 1 by Rod Direct, then Recovery by Veer Books, No Title by Gang, and Towards Infinity, it was in collaboration with Paul Buck and came out by RD. Again, poems have also appeared in various anthologies, not just in this country, but in the US as well as in the continent, such as France. So, for example, Mathieu d'Angleterre in France, other by Wesleyan University Press in Hanover, Vanishing Points was a Salt publication, and of course, not of course, but I'm honored to say that Ulli's work also appeared in Wretched Strangers, which was a lot of you will know about the Boiler House UEA publishing project. So I'm really looking forward to hearing you again, Ulli. But before we do that, I also would like to introduce Alan to all of you, who probably doesn't need an introduction either, really, but just for the sake of it anyway. Huge and warm welcome to Alan, who says that he has read recently, or not such a long time ago, in Sheffield. But I don't know if I had too much wine at the time or what's happening. I would like to, Alan, you to remind me when that was actually. Could have been one of the, perhaps the Israeli event, or I don't know. Anyhow, so Alan Fisher is a poet, painter, and art historian, and worked in the city-led works from 1962 until the 1970s. Performed with Fluxus in Britain in the 1970s as well. Studied physics and human physiology, then art, drawing and color at Goldsmith, and then art history at Essex, and came to Hereford in January 1989 to teach there, and he's still teaching in Hereford currently. Alan Fisher is also an emeritus professor of poetry and art at Manchester Metropolitan University, and he was head of art at Roehampton, then head of contemporary arts at Manchester King's College, arts at Manchester. Then there's been several shows, of course, that we can retrospectively give you a list of. For example, Apple Store Gallery in Hereford in 2013 had Alan's show on King's College Archive in 2003. Laleham Gallery in London in 1998 and 2002. We are going backwards in time. And then the Hereford Museum and Gallery in 94. King's Manor Gallery in New York, 93. The work in public collections include works in Tate Gallery, King's Archive, University of London, again Hereford City Museum, and the Living Museum in Reykjavik, Iceland. He's editor of the journal Spanner and Spanner Editions, and co-publisher of Aloy's books, and currently teaches for the WEA in Herefordshire. The recent publications include the artist's book Black Pond, which came out in 2020, Imperfect Fit, which is essays on aesthetics, factor, and perception. That was a University of Alabama publication. No Longer Alone, poetry with photographs by Paige Mitchell, and and Alan's two long sequences of poetry, Gravity as a Consequence of Shape and Place, are now available in a complete. These are previous publications from the 1980s to the 2007 1970s and early 80s as well. The place collection I'm talking about, which is very familiar to our own students as well. Anyhow, so these are now available as complete collections from Reality Street editions. So again, welcome to Ulli and welcome back to Ellen, and looking forward to hearing both of you. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Short poems. Darkness contained to overpower, wrist twisted on antique papers, imperfect plucked with foul foxing, watermarks turned chain lines, coordinate points curled, held calendar cloudy, from crush marks wire netted before the eyes. Not to be gazing, sheep but fodder, bodies to administer, pursued to establish, fear the rot afflicted. Two entities standing another at the expense of the latter, a single issue unbelieved, sucked between hemispheres, a labyrinth depth, and rubble pane, contracted out, system imposed, those flushed out, raw joints confined, employee relations industrialized, hummed located control, and since the verbs have distributional constraints consistent with water, sows which message courses woven between mountains echoed fantastic finality from their viewings, positioned and dreamt of contact, not now. Some words dropped over, objected, gazed margin ledge wound by ivy, leaves left fallen to displaced articulations, unmarked tones spaced, made memory knotted, utmost discretion, recording session. Tried to be yet alighted when reading followed, long march of sufferers, and eyes felt trodden on, those sitting pensively, murmurs heard as wind sounds penetrated at speed, enlarged spaces echoed to the furthest trees. He would bequeath everything antique to the unreal and the barely skeletal, any principle of linear, emptied space and semiforms and vegetables connected, a perceived knowing whose chemical mixed foamed, opposite places to users, hollows as habitats, building on the hill, made steep slopes, had their origin from her breath, with each incident timed by potions from all known proportions, took water and air with ashes, thoughts become comets. Grayer lights, brutal heights, cross-wired entanglements, border wounded disorder, like some slide crank felt unbalanced. No access or departure, concrete blocked, sovereignty jerked, sledgehammered. Overloaded spines curved, downward reality, underlying financing, machinery of overcladded underdevelopments, covered in earthworks, worm gears, their bevels grinded, faked a composed momentum, blurred eyes raked from vanished hand upon table leveled profiles. Their vibrations came from isolation, where mutations sense a tolerance understood, ambled towards deep, bogged and log-jammed. Dealing in the skin, the formal brought him dorse and inner membranes, time forward and on, watermark as evidence, imports for a rigid sewing, forms a roll, for rolling together, a binding passing possibly at margin, hand slopes on a continuous stroke, foot sent to head in a splayed position, surface bearing the matter, deleted with a patch. Writing had been written twice over, another should have only been written once, in temptation to see these marks as words of love. Opposition transforms into lunar animals. Those stars you see would be sharpened teeth, your engines running for the economy as hunters of scarification in pursuit, followed by debts and dues to pit trap poverty from caverns with another strata, and writings interchanged, a fissure sparked, line of breakage, constant darkness devours. Counterfeit ink of faked writing upon surface, undulated flesh upon flesh side, then flipped to doors where membraned handfuls of thickened hair obstructed positions, and words of love made tears that curdled and saw my very blood clot at margin, steadfast, truly struck through by online realm in deep subliminal chatter, met police London, meet under one metropolitan baron who facilitated processed products to spread infectious as one willed jewels with another, only met opposites, conveyed source rushed, pulsating bejeweled love by being embraced, blew breath away, a scribe forlorn, made to feel his mistake, under Venus views, eyed deep blued skies, tired by flickered screen, curtain this, which scene, question between fallen trees, ponder deletions, opened password to you. Within cell in spiraled appearance, speeds as if true, I should shine on the outside, my mirrored image against distortions, broken through optical cladding, smoke destination recaptured through keyhole of expanded door, barred message with a crammed view, never massive fragments collided against stones, were lifted under most concrete opinion. Vision to be twisted by a misted moorland, a faded light imagined in streets stranded being distanced, then braided by trees, streams converge into my hollow. Sounded signal lost, where intricate marks were scratched through by others at windows transmitting. Vertical shoot air in between zones, lost in those streets and alleys, social authority wilderness, rational control of loins bushed, exceeds maximums like trees felled, corrosively deep-seated as breath slides, in slippage copied slopes occupying, does not displace mudslides, began with each step, onward by toe erosion till feet inevitably disappeared, parallel cliffs retreating, body as head to translate heart of thought. Button my last utters, red beads cracked, while breath through teeth blowpiped, minute shells from lost sea beneath my feet deep, that gave them wealth. From it then as skin sprinkled, now you are talking, walking only a perimeter dished, across splint hole, grinding in heel, to open a forest door, of creeper punctuation eat, all birds chant, none will misplace, feathers and other items, buried be suffering diminished. In a scattered intensity, all colors dampened, spring dulled, period across line of sight transition, feel our body pattern changed. The system continues penetration, news flash circulating fluids within solidified, repulsive dynamics of work, started. They surrounded us with a lattice. We know it's a nightmare cage. whilst decision makers exchange their profiles for animal heads to show themselves as owners, rams' heads of power and wealth, and speeches to be made are stuck onto forked sticks from tongues exceptional, making the pen sharp, all rational calculating machines. Upon the hills we are digging. Memory driven through unknown lanes steep and wound around lost fingers prone to falsify up against wall of rocks. Voices from within, fissures on surface or some gaping cracks, low signal to noise ratio, wish of those who spoke return to life on other bodies, on carrier frequencies embraced. Defences broken, fences flattened, the commons our safety net, to shun current focus, beset with crisis, below darkened clouds, under layers opening. Life now emerges, normality is outrageous, rights shudder over earthenware, our spells cracked open, all hidden conspiracies boiled over establishment, their infamous manufactures obsoleted. An artery of lost tones with each brushstroke a spectrum blemished, caused unwanted particles upon outlined symbols, with much faded backdrop to ground, a scaffold debris netted, sables clogged of lead white obsoleted, and brushes discarded, pen is deconstructed, keypad continued ghosting until screen broke up, went to the nearest remaining building to strum and pluck antennas for full sky coverage, hear pulse embedded through random noise, stars struck words collide. Crag leaning over, precarious from the start, to the teetering hope, abundances of soft mosses in hanging on outward from control, manipulated sounds, a knot in heart undoing material, settled in as interpreter of the climate, as sun climaxes for the experience, talk of walked decision, distance only an object, far away met my robot, then learnt the language, no desires slur the heathers, nor ignore limbs, wind-swept bodies dreamt a loaded breath in deserts, rocks below her element. Widespread disruption with foregone errors and deletions accused, eyes instinctively redden into receding lines, fleeing to obscure space, you in between depths, held onto margin, white out across expanse. Over edge wasteland remains with cleared border, perimeter grown over, where words tower overnight. Exited westerly direction, described by expanded barriers, high walled hinterland with painted red warnings. Access to border crossing under watchtower views, vein-like perimeters defended, system completed of no contents. They are the indigenous on an island where they spoke with over-salted words under white sky lead, showers from omnidirectional beacon. I embark and I am expected to drink lights, converse in star pulse lines with interstellar neighbors. Write the same, then flickered light, versions made over and over. See ochre, felt line near in that condition, dead dark cloud, cockatoo white colt, face falls false, shouldered asides, constant screen skins flaked, words each with powders, over burial of love charms, green hay, heaped collection, field at daybreak, on the change of moon, as yet undated, world a wedding mud. Found in sound, quarried away when a fragment from pitch was taken by mouth, foundations, dust over skin, barrows humped, included, ditched, the buckles found, chalked down as record in empty building, base of a gentle slope, shield bosses, knoll brooches. Skies in whiteness, an unmarked disappearance. My lines alternate, summer's teeth like a saw, each letter soaked skin, slopes hand as though words are splayed, illusionary forms are towed by pen strokes near crossing to horizon, stroke upon stroke from head position, infertile hemispheres between their edges, split a reflective lightning shorted to roots. A sympathetic outflow empties in grey columns dissolving, felt, heart bled a pulse, and wrote balancing upon the mountains on window ledge. Sky greyness hurts eyes, vaguely picked out verge, yet track no light, soundless over edge, beckon to wall of rocks, their weighty pressure rolls in my head, where hemispheres overstretched, granite draws and nightfall, below in body a work of damage, under splash black wound, streaked clouded moon, posts to force over, shoulders against fence, against fixed theft, commons trampled upon unforgiven properties. No wings to stumble in, which way is pre-planned, conspired to tread over trust, left from positions underneath mass, no love dug up as an estimated relic for future generation, shifted benefits, walk continued, same as hills, heights of endurance, my thoughts littered paths to spread wider than border, control developers stitching up horizon, ill face down in marshes, comeback spread, open wild flowers, encouraged by escalating crescendo, from skylark, a transmission of sound across open fields to reverb in valleys, to fossil brand owning business, come hurricanes and mudslides, all words freed from the firm. Was in city, drawn down alley and out into wasteland, substituted, located, data crashed, shaped subsistence, living shaded. Let's not be forgetting past, nor the redness of sky. Flyby of crows were blacker then as they are black now. Identities begging for all, bankers and financiers, plus inflated bosses, flee their clocks, headed for rocks through streets conjoined, in all aspects flooded by lunar eclipses powered, cross currents without currencies. Constant siren wails, reverberations deafened between remaining buildings. Where are the people making a stand in streets, clashed against authorities, boomed voices of faked content, apartment seats are burial mounds taken by the cabinet, a round rubble table for another draconian bill, no excuses for the wallpaper, welcome to the tomb culture, to weep in landslides where the poor are poorer. Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody else that read. I really enjoyed so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ulli. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
It was so good to hear you again. Very beautiful reading, and I'm so glad we've got a recording of it now as well. Thank you. Okay, and our last reader and guest is Alan next.
Thanks, Ulli. Thank you, Aggie and Adam. I'm going to read from 8 different works, and I've listed the publications of those works on my web, alanfisher.co.uk. And so I won't get into other introductions except to announce what I'm reading. I'm going to start with Proposals, which I wrote in 2005. I'll start with the first Proposals. When I first came to Crewe, I saw the death of my mind and started work again to bring it back to life through nourishment, unknown to me until then, with vegetables and fruit already known, with tactics already tried and sometimes previously tested, until on the third day after the railway declined, I stood on the grime of platform 5 and revived my confidence in a lack I now recognize as necessary, as demanding. Next one's called Strut Step. It got published in Leans, 2007. It was written in 2004. Undermined by his use of weapons, food, and trust, a clerk stamps feet before a guarded half flicker prevents the morning get-up, absence of fidelity cured by suspicion. She wills to claim rights out of proportion to any will to meet duties or reader demands for recognitions. The passerby provides a stranger with inaccurate directions. The cleric look and gaze receives the other into himself, a mistrusted truth out of active modernism, injected into blind acceptance, all of a sudden at a weak node, once held by a stream of thread. Tensions give way to a deep crying understood as a gutter to strengthen a resolve, to all of quickness demand duty over impulse before freedom becomes another troubled joy. In the rainweed, where the ducks sink, shot 3 times with their backs turned to camera, clean up the complexity of muscular image. Bus came at last, lost in count of how many crossed the grass in relief to the bloom of irises, like but not actually eternity. Not yet immobilized by order and simplistics. Who eats my dinner, notes the reader, eats me. Solid phase modernist synthesis continues to be hampered by structural loss, a poor solubility in image production, blocked in horse serum, solubilized, biotintilated, reagents lift from a scientific rhetoric applied to biotin labeled peptides used as affinity purification and as fluorescence resonance, energy transfer based flow cytometry, as well as retro solid phase immunoassays and receptor localizers that exploit high modernist affinity to streptotavudin. With its background problem, even when late producers titrate resolves with a dilution until a moment when further image completely loses touch with pain or reality, a continuous separation of a relatively solid from a relatively fluid component. The renouncement into orgasm accompanied by spontaneous resonance, sprung forth involuntarily from the voice, a heightened syncopation, tarantalized. It protects me from disengagement, from another death, alone, uselessly naked, as if art incorporated permanence of form in transient materials, a pressure from competition, extremes, modernist anesthetic, an ideal in deep appreciation of the neighbor, exhausted by haste, refined, sexual feelings fleet in over-fenced gleam light, a war debated in dialectic frenzy. The third one, from No Longer Alone. I'm going to read the 23rd part of it. In a flush of lift and overwhelm, galvanized representatives pass the threshold beyond dominant hearing loss in electromagnetic compass jam. Urban noise with actin mutations demand the rich world to provide against damage, a non-linearity of thermal expansion as a function of ecological distance. Necessities of nonlinear stochastics, energy equipartition, thermodynamics, links between covariants and tensors, stationary surfaces in a 5-dimensional target crash. Land on a black sheet, rows of red lights, blue rectangles, moving yellow flashes, white lights, curve of neck pain. bang and thuds on black, the impasse of over-centralized crisis, articulated apprehensions, the self as an intention, the ends of humankind contingent on given non-entities. Turned the lights out, you could see many of the stars, but not read the signs. In smell and touch, as you imagined them, lost in the effect of lit cities, oblivious to recall today, to put it simply, in a flush of lift and overwhelm. I'm reading two pieces from Poetries, which are still underway. They've recently been published in a cafe review in Portland, Maine. They both have footnotes. Wellfleet. Wellfleet's in Massachusetts. It's where Francesca Amfit-Athertov has one of her 4 residences. She's the artistic director of watches and jewelry for Louis Vuitton and creative director of Thief and Heist, a drop-driven new jewelry business selling jewelry you can only remove by cutting it off. When you're in the outer limits and want to get back, you look for landing lines to help you find out where you are as you fall over. Reorbit is hard. You want to keep happiness. Don't wear shoes or put your dog on a leash. Surf all day, then skinny through forests. Dive in freshwater wash-off. You go back to your second house before slow re-entry. Give your city team 2 touch points. Now this, before get back demand. The second one's called Hampstead. And the footnote, Hampstead's in London. It's where Honora O'Neill lives. Now she's retired from Cambridge and left her Islington family home. She's a constructivist philosopher of bioethics, duty and justice, and has increasing concerns regarding social media. When you're inside your limits and want to hold on, you don't need reassurance to help you find out where you are as you worry about others. You sink into a purple armchair. You want to keep happiness, an orderly home with flowers and paintings of flowers and a jug, crumples of bright pillows. You go to your new home before slow rewriting, rewiring, nature morte, a terrible term for still life. Now free speech, informed consent, now worthy trust. This is an incidental piece sent to Datableed. At every moment, the foghorn ignored becomes her lunch. None of us intend this. Our deafness has been compensated for with a screech. In any movement, a hogborn board beckons brunch. One other intendo hour, bereft, poor heaven, plated forward a peach. Alert but overwhelmed with alarms, a cold plate of bubble and squeak, left a chill in a fridge, oblivion to the past, replaced with a sharp reminder. I'm working on another set called Piano Knots, and I'm going to read one of those. 2 of them were published in a book by Earthbound in just recently, last month. This is called Rain Last. To begin with, green unending in exile on earth, my eyes roam free in solitude without ever there. The land of longing, drift of cloud stretch, a plurality of isolations, gaze on the peak and love, looks into the level moors. When with others and roamed in vast space-time, a mirror cloud billows out, do not care about, performed in the distance. A concupiscence of the flesh, peals of thunder, towards others in years gone, concupiscence of the eyes swallows, winging from the curtains. Do not speak to each focused thought, and pride of life, a sudden downpour. It is easier music concluded. To show and fulfill desires and fish sink. Do not look at one another after a long time, sunlight shifted, that alternate prose and verse, then hear the gate. Isolation actually lived, accepts all additions of earth, offers parallel to unlikeness, the shore of the clear lake, to look at someone else and nowhere. Between the possession of reason and the mournful, the impossibility of uniting the sea, accepts all streams, the failure to exercise it, to leave aside. Then at ourselves a particular strut, turn the light of innermost warfare, to discard principle, altogether the looming heights. Gaze upon what you thought his lasting radiance, the isolation which everyone lives being stirred depends on true friends, of self, where the dark waters. And loving at the same time, then hear the gate. Dry of sound, smell, touch, and fish sink. Other distinct things, a sudden downpour. Lens a burnt out cinder swallows, winging from the curtains. Such as honor and military peals of thunder. No luck in turning back, cloud billows out. Excellence, the level moors. Resistance to the tropic drift of cloud stretch. With a retreat to my eyes roam free. An uproot of body and without study. An extra political society, days of rushing through the yard. Consciousness balance, one sweep, how all the world is small. Of the garden, a summit you never climbed to, on cusps of getting there, the entry of homing birds, not easily able to sustain splits in eye pupils. Through broken windows, exhilarated layers of cloud, interest and engagement, riving dusk and dawn, and panoptic hoarfrost, compacted splendors. I read the first of 5 basins of attractors, which I'd written for a project that locally Penny Hallis collected together for an exhibition that's to open in June in Elysium Gallery in Swansea. Overall title being Without Borders. And we have a sort of local collective that's putting an entry into that show. It will then travel, the show is expected to travel. And it's an artist's book show, really. So this is the first one. Attractors of a dynamical system have a subset, the space-time state, that is when we are in a phase space such as we have choices, say, between hot water and steam, and a number of degrees of freedom. For example, you imagine a deep depression in the Earth's damage in which orbits originate over typical initial conditions, and they tend as space-time increases to be shaped like bowls with sides higher than the bottom, oval or circular in shape, the qualitative long motion of the given system. That is when the water you wash in stays in one bowl and can be fused similar to a sink or tub section in a bath filled with water or empty, in which basin of attraction, the initial condition, lies in what basic topological structure formed by forces felt above the ground, like erosion, or below the ground like earthquakes. Of such entities can vary greatly from system to system into bifurcations, this and that, in which basins over thousands of rumbles or overnight in river, similar to a drainage basin, that is the land where boundaries burn qualitative changes as a pulse parameter passes through a critical bifurcation, a difficulty of this and that. And then I'm going to close with a number of selections from Black Pond. Black Pond 2. He looks onto the water surface in a bowl to remove hair from his chin. A fleeting moment and the look is internalized into difficulty. As the look pulls back from the surface, darkens then lightens, the look becomes perspective of what could happen today. Rocks, some faceted, others polished, some transparent, remove his stubble. Glass rocks seen into from a variety of forethoughts, a variety of demands. He stares beyond the obsidian surface to what is proposed in a returned future. This is from Black Pond 7, stanza 3. Our darkness, seen as in a glass passed over possibilities of atomic development, in search of this new world with wander feet, frontotemporal dementia. The dark unbottomed infinite through the palpable obscure, abroad through all the coasts of dark destruction, their doubtful consultations dark rejoice, the darkened landscape beyond this flood, of tau isoforms, multiple molecular confirmers, dark and wild, perpetual storms, on firm land gathers heap and ruin abundant, neurofibrillary tangles and plaques in cerebral cortex, paired numerous helical and straight filaments. Black Pond 8, I'm going to read the 7th part of that. There are 10 stanzas, I'm not going to give you the numbers. The logos of the house are last glacier, the bogus offered now our luck luster. The rotation of swelling our eaten property, a flotation powered smelting of street and poverty. Ingoing blackness resonates in a scatter, ingrown fracture percolates in chatter, flown fragrance perceived in matter. In gong, blankness recurs in a shatter, light through a glass section of the office door. Ingoing rankness blurs in a tatter, with coloured blankets and cloths stretched. Ongoing frank mess slews into textile, wit bothered plan chests and bathes the fetched. Onto growbank mislures into sex mile. Into ground in fixed smears into flux style, over a dome constructed of sticks, flicker of orange light through glass. Intermittent rounding, pixelated shears, intermittent fax file. Rover at dawn erupted off tricks, ricochet, a range bright too fast, splitter of a range, flight through grass. Bitten sounding elated, more bitten foxtail, rebound and strange, fright of the vast. Proffered entangled retrospection, attribute top, fondle the path septic, a rip-off strongs the electric, a strip stop towards the majestic. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alan.
Thanks a lot. It's nice to see so many people.
And nice to see you too. I'm not going to say too much, just a really huge thank you to all 5 of you. Needless to say that this wouldn't happen if you guys weren't that so generous really with your time, literally. So huge thank you really to Kinga, Toth, Carrie Etter, Tim Atkins, Ulli and Alan Fisher for reading tonight. Absolutely amazing and breathtaking readings. Really a huge thank you. I don't know if anybody wants to ask any questions. I mean, we don't normally, we just usually just relax for 5-10 minutes before we say goodbye. But if anybody wants to raise any questions or comments or thank yous, that would be lovely, or you don't have to. Or also if you've got within the immediate or near future any events to publicize, that's absolutely fine. But maybe that could come after the if you